Good morning. This is the Innovation Conversation. I'm Kevin Coupe.
And I'm Tom Furphy.
Tom, we're back now on a regular basis every other week. I wanted to talk a little bit about a conversation you and I actually have had over the last couple of weeks offline. And you made the observation to me that for retailers, traditional retailers that want to compete with Amazon, one of the core things that they have to do is figure out how to eliminate redundant supply chain and logistics issues. I mean, it's not the only thing preventing them from competing with Amazon, but that's one of the biggies. So, and that was interesting to me because, I immediately thought of 20 years ago, right? ECR, efficient consumer response, which the industry did. It was a response to Walmart. And it was not wholly successful. I mean, if it had been, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But it seems to me that's really what we're talking about the industry doing as a response to Amazon. I mean, is that a fair reading of it? And when you talk about redundant logistics and supply chain issues, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so what I mean by that, when Walmart came and gave us the disruption that they brought to us, from call it 30 to 15 years ago, as they were coming to market, they built this new supply chain, right? There was these larger box stores with incredible efficiencies behind the scenes where they were able to get products to the shelf, and be able to sell them to customers at a really good value because they had a low cost structure, far lower than anything that came before it. Now over the last decade and a half, you've had in our business, you've had Amazon further disrupting that with a brand new direct-to-consumer supply chain that itself is incredibly efficient, right? From all the way upstream, when products come out of manufacturers and get into these big upstream Amazon facilities, all the way down to the local facilities and even the gray trucks you see buzzing around your neighborhood, right? Amazon has built this amazing, efficient direct-to-consumer supply chain, with a very low cost of capital and a very kind of effective, result that has come from that. When you look at the retail landscape now that has to compete, on this new playing field that Amazon has established, you probably can talk about maybe Walmart's big enough where they can establish, a kind of similar, level of cost structure and ability to bring that to market. But then after Walmart, you've got basically everybody else in the business. And you have some really big companies in there, and you have some not so big companies in there. But any of their individual abilities to build this direct-to-consumer supply chain is super limited, right? Because they only can impact their market share in their markets. And then when you think about, I've got retailer A competing against retailer B, not to mention C, D, and E, but in a market, right, where we have these kind of competing retailers, all competing with their own supply chains, right? So they have their own, kind of upstream logistics coming down to the store. They may have their own, be it micro fulfillment or their own delivery capabilities or whatever. So you've got all these kind of redundant things happening in the market, which ultimately adds a ton of cost relative to that volume compared to what competing against Amazon would be. So, I think in a perfect world, there would be some infrastructure that, potentially some shared infrastructure perhaps that, retailers could, each embrace and pay their portion of it, but not necessarily have to shoulder the entire burden. So a little bit kind of similar to, with ECR, it was really about bringing a different level of collaboration between retailers and manufacturers. I think we need to step that up even another level. But it's thinking about what are the non-differentiated things we do in serving our customers, and can we drive incredible efficiencies there by collaborating together?
Well, and it's interesting because the criticism of ECR always has been that it was efficient and it was a response, but everybody sort of forgot the consumer.
Totally.
So there's sort of an, that they really worked on the manufacturer retailer side of it. And so it's kind of ironic now that what we're talking about is a response that actually is all about the consumer, because that's, if you, as you've said here so many times, that's Amazon's secret sauce, right? Is they figure they understand the consumer in a way that almost nobody else does, and they're inventing systems that are designed specifically to do what needs to be done in a 21st century way, and everybody else has got to kind of from Walmart right down to a one-store independent, they've all got to retrofit it, and that's incredibly difficult.
Incredibly difficult, incredibly expensive. You do have disruptors like an Instacart, that come in and they get right there up against the customer, right? They have apps and they, their interface is directly with the shopper. They make the shopper's life easier. Now it's expensive, but they make the shopper's life easier that, hey, I can shop for these products and get them delivered to me. As a customer, it feels super efficient. Instacart's still losing money, but as a customer, you solve a pain for me. So you are consumer centric, Instacart. Thank you. And you have gotten between me and my retailer, but that's okay because you're serving me in ways that they haven't been able to.
Sure,
and that's powerful.
And they do. I've always said, listen, it's good for the consumer, good for Instacart. Problem is the retailer who's being disintermediated out of the relationship.
Yeah, retailers have to figure that out.
And the irony is, and I know you and I both keep these on our desk because it's even though he wrote this book again like 20 years ago, right? I mean, Glenn Turbeek was writing about this 20 years ago in the agentry agenda. The whole argument being, if the retailer had to be an agent for the consumer, not a sales tool for the manufacturer, and that lesson did not get the kind of traction that that Glenn or you or I would have hoped that it would have gotten, except apparently at Amazon.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think if and I encourage, and we got to talk to Turbeek about getting this thing back in circulation. An electronic version of this, I think, should be on everybody's Kindle, which is of course also an Amazon product. But I mean, it reads, so it is so prescient. I mean, it's, I think 99, he published this, so 21 years ago. And he's dead on, with the way we should be thinking about using these technology tools, which the internet was just in its infancy then, but the way we should be using these technology tools to service the customer better. It's an amazing piece of work. And it's, I think that the industry should really think about rallying around, something like this today.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, the thing was, there were a lot of, I mean, I hesitate to say this a little bit, but there were a lot of big thinkers 20 and 25 years ago who were highly prescriptive in the way that they saw things, and were people like Glenn or Michael Connor, people like that. On the retail side, David Jenkins. People who saw the challenges and then went after them and came up with solutions. And I think that we may be caught in a moment where everybody's being so reactive, and God knows the world is a more complicated place for lots of reasons today than it was, 20, 25 years ago. But we've got to start getting more prescriptive in terms of how we do this. It's interesting. One of the things that has happened just since you and I last talked in this forum was that Amazon opened its store in LA, the Amazon Fresh Grocery Store, the first of what appears to be many. We had a story just yesterday about how now apparently they're teaming up with Kohl's, and Kohl's is going to start carving out a percentage of its store footprint and devoting that to an Amazon grocery store, thinking that will bring people into Kohl's. I think, again, it's going to be better for Amazon than it's going to be for Kohl's, I suspect, in the long run. But it's one way to attack it. And then we have the announcement that they had opened a Whole Foods dark store in Brooklyn, New York. And I keep thinking to myself that of all those moves, and God, there's lots of other stuff I'm sure going on that we don't even know about, that is the one that struck me as being potentially more impactful, the Brooklyn dark store. because it struck me as being the kind of thing that could service both Whole Foods. It could service Amazon, just plain Amazon customers on the grocery side, has the ability to be enormously flexible and really get right. I mean, again, bring customers even closer to Amazon, again, via all those the gray vans that now seem to be on my street more than you see FedEx or UPS.
Yeah, I think that the grocery dark store being Whole Foods branded now, which in that market, particularly with the new Wegmans store there, and they probably, the opportunity to defend some turf there, I think the Whole Foods branding is important to have around that. But it's just an extension of their clear strategy back since I was there, was as these businesses grow and they're serving more customers and they're getting more density in these markets, you push more products out closer to the end customer. And, grocery, of course, is all about being local because you don't want it to travel very far. And yeah, if you can design the right assortment in these facilities, which by the way, you can, because you have all the great data, on your local customers, you build that right assortment for the market. Yeah, you can light those things up pretty inexpensively. So yeah, I can imagine seeing, those in most, good dark inventory nodes of Amazon grocery in basically any reasonably sized market throughout the country.
I mean, there's a lot of conversation about opening these micro fulfillment centers, right? And
sure.
and which seems really smart to me. The question I keep wondering though, is when you hear about the technology, you hear about the robotic technology that funnels the product in and out. You don't tend to hear as much about the data side of it that drives, a different selection, depending on where it happens to be. And it seems to me that if you have one without the other, it's like making spaghetti carbonara without pancetta, right? Right. I mean, you've got pieces of it, but you don't have the thing that really makes it special. That's where the magic is.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all about the data. The data drives the ultimate assortment that you carry. And it's not just that you're reactive to customers. You use the data to also anticipate what additional product needs they could, have, or, product innovations that might make sense for them because you have enough signals otherwise. But yeah, I mean, the value of that data, and, at Amazon, it's second nature, because we're all Prime members. We all share a lot of information with Amazon. And, fortunately, Amazon's been a very good custodian of that data, right? I mean, they've really mostly used it, or at least it seems like they're using it to benefit us as customers.
You never see, I mean, it's hard for me to remember a time, and it would be an enormous headline, about a data breach at Amazon or.
Yeah, and I think from a security standpoint, they're really good. But then they also, just the way that they use the data, they use it, they really do have a pure notion, a pure vision, a pure mission to serve you with that data, right? They're going to send you offers based on things they think you're interested in, based on the what you've searched for in the past or what you bought or shopped for or whatever. And so I think obviously as they get deeper and deeper in the grocery space, their ability to win with customer data, from things like subscription auto replenishment all the way through, fresh meat, seafood, and produce, they're going to be just better and better and better at that. They're going to be better and better partners for manufacturers. They're going to be better and better solution for customers. And that just behooves the rest of the industry to start, behaving, in ways that and serving their customers in ways that customers want to be served. And that means leveraging the data, love Instacart, that Instacart has all this data. But right now they're in a position to use it a lot more effectively than a lot of the retailers that are partnering with them, and that's something to think about.
Yeah, well, and to go back to where we started, where you're talking about companies needing to eliminate redundant supply chain and logistics issues, but it's not a matter of doing that. It is also about protecting your data, which protects your brand, but also investing in the analytics that allow you to act on those things. Because you're right. I mean, if there's another company out there that seems perfectly positioned to use data effectively other than Amazon, it would appear to be Instacart. And the great irony is it's not Instacart's data.
And yet it is.
And yet it is. And that's something, but that'll be that's the rabbit hole you and I have gone down numerous times and will yet again.
I know, we keep jumping in.
We're going to keep talking about it though. Anyway, well, listen, this has been a great innovation conversation. I'm glad we're back now on a regular basis, that fall has started. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Kevin.
See you next time.